Hey there and welcome back to Mutant Year Zero. My name is Pete and today we complete episode 2 of our Iron Mutant playthrough. In the last episode we met our two mutant stalkers, Dux and Bormin. We safely guided them back to the Ark and that is where we still are to start off today's video. Now as you can see, the Ark has a few places of interest for us to visit, and we'll start with Delta's Fix Pit, probably the place we'll visit most often throughout the beginning of the series.
Want to know how this goes down? For the right price, I fix and upgrade your shitty gear. Any questions?
Well, she seems friendly, but there are in fact a few things we can do here. In particular, we can dismantle our weapons for precious weapon parts, and we want to do that with one of our Stinger pistols. The other one remains on Dux for the time being. Now, this gives us 11 more parts, bringing our total up to 49, while both of our characters still have a secondary weapon to fall back to. And with those 49 weapon parts, we can now upgrade Dux's crossbow. The upgrade to level 2 costs us 30 parts, and as you can see, it increases the weapon's regular and critical hit damage by 1 point. And we already learned last time how valuable even the slightest damage increase can be, and also how valuable silent weapons are in this game, so this upgrade is by far the most important thing to get done here. However, we are not finished yet. Also in the last episode, we picked up 2 weapon attachments, so let's make the crossbow even stronger. With a scope, we can increase its range by 20%, and combined with Dux's snazzy visor, he will now be able to hit enemies from even further away. We can also put the broiler damage module on the crossbow now, which gives a 1 point increase to critical hit damage and adds a 50% chance to set enemies on fire on every hit. In my opinion, that is a bit of a situational bonus, as we can't really depend on it, but from time to time it will make things easier. And so here we are. No further upgrades are currently possible, and even if they were, I would not consider them necessary at this point, so let's continue our tour.
Take it easy.
The second place we'll visit is Prips, where we can now meet the local bartender.
After a killer day in the zone, you know you can always come to Prips for some high-quality grog. You want to get loaded? Order a shot. No butane, no bleach, only natural ingredients. I also dabble in a little, antiquity trading. So if you find any cool artifacts out in the wasteland, bring them to me and I might give you something in return. Comprende?
And we do in fact have one of the aforementioned artifacts, namely the boombox we collected in the last episode, and we can now exchange that for one of 3 interesting bonuses: Tough Guy, Mule, or Dealmaker. Tough Guy will extend our bleed out timer so that if one of our characters goes down in a fight, we have a bit more time to save them before they die, at which point they are then gone for good. Mule gives all characters an extra grenade slot, but we already have 2 per character, so I don't think that's super urgent at the moment. Finally then, Dealmaker gives us a permanent 20% discount at Iridius Shop, which we'll visit in just a second, and it is also the one we're going with, simply because it allows us to save some money, and the earlier we grab it, the more money we can save.
Wish I could go with you, but I'm married to this bar.
And so, Iridius Shop is up next. Let's see if we can purchase anything useful.
You know the drill. Stalkers want gear that keeps them alive. I, Iridia, provide the gear. See anything you like, just let me know. There is one rule. Don't ever pull my chain. If you pull my chain, I'll feed your ding-dongs to a zone wolf. Got that? Beautiful. Happy shopping.
Alright, now Iridia sells a bunch of potentially interesting items like grenades, molotovs or medkits. She also has another sight for sale, as well as the pipe gun here, which is looking very intriguing with a base damage of 5 at level 1, 1 point higher than Dux's crossbow, and also with a base range of 14, which is also a lot higher. However, I do feel like buying it at this point is a waste of scrap. Even with the discount it would decimate our funds, it is also not a silent weapon, and we simply don't need it right now.
Later, Gator.
That means we're leaving without any new items and can now pay one more visit to the Elder.
My home will always be a haven to you, brave Stalkers. After your journeys, pay me a visit, and I'll offer you some guidance, perhaps a story, to help you become wise and strong. Survive and persevere, my brave Stalkers.
Right, so he is definitely giving off some sort of vibe. In any case though, we are done with the arc for now and can finally continue our adventure. Our next destination is Hammon's cabin, and the place has already been marked on the map, so we can travel there directly from the arc without having to go through the arc outskirts again, which would only cost us time as we have stripped the area clean already.
Thanks for signing me up back there, you crazy pig. Yes, Mr. Elder. Sign us up for a suicide mission, Mr. Elder. Did you forget there's like a cajillion ghouls out here who want to kill us?
Nobody gets to kill you but me now. Shut the duck up and keep moving.
I'm telling you, Borman, ain't no happy ending in this story.
Stalkers don't get happy endings. We get each other. So watch my back.
Now, soon after entering the area, we want to leave the path and turn left to venture deeper into the forest, which quickly results in our first encounter with a new type of enemy.
These abandoned campsites always get my feathers twitching. Hundreds of them out here. All full of ghosts, shivering in the cold.
And keeping an eye on the zone dog wandering around, we can briefly collect all the valuables that can be found around the broken down house here. The inside of the house is especially important, as it contains two separate piles of weapon parts. Once we have everything, we then want to follow the dog, already take note of its 10 hit points, and ambush as soon as we're close enough. Now, Dux does not even have to move to land a guaranteed hit, and since he was hidden, he does actually also get a critical on the shot, and the dog is on fire as well. Still, we have to do a bit more damage to avoid being attacked on the enemy's turn, so let's move up with Borman.
Sleep it off.
Sweet takedown.
Now, you may have noticed it, that shot with the scattergun was overheard by another enemy in the area, specifically another zone dog. So, time to go for kill number 2. This time we switch Borman over to the Gaper for 6 points of damage, as Dux's crossbow has already run out of ammo after just one shot. And that is also why we kept that Stinger pistol on Dux, so he can now switch over to that, move up and deal the remaining 4 points of damage.
Sorry about that. Come back here.
And there we are, our first 2 zone dogs have been defeated, we have gained another level that will save for now, and we can now head straight east to investigate an interesting object.
Whoa, check this thing out. It must have crashed. Look at this symbol on the side, it's like a star.
Okay, no idea what that is yet, but there is some scrap hidden behind it, so let's collect that and then head into a southeastern direction towards Hammon's cabin.
Good news is we reached Hammon's cabin. Bad news is there's 2 friggin' ghouls casing the joint.
We takes everything, but there are no secrets. Where are the secrets?
The ones in the north will catch Hammon and squeeze the secrets from his head.
Hammon will tell us what the junk is for.
The junk is for us. All of it.
So, 3 enemies have taken over the cabin, so it looks like Hammon won't be found that easily, and one of the enemies is a weak marauder that starts patrolling as soon as the dialogue ends. As you can imagine, we can use that to our advantage, wait until it's far enough away from the other 2 enemies, and then silently take it out with Dux and his trusty crossbow.
Whew, bye-bye.
So, now begins the interesting part, as one of the enemies here is a shaman. And a shaman will call in reinforcements if we leave them alive to act on their turn, which is something that we definitely want to avoid this early in the game. This also means, though, that we will have to focus all of our firepower on that shaman and leave the hunter inside of the cabin alone for now. This will then result in us witnessing our first actual enemy turn, so some cover might be a good idea. The fight then begins, as usual, with a crossbow bolt from Dux.
Yeah!
And that sets the enemy on fire, but with half of their hit points still remaining, Bormin is once again needed to deliver the killing blow.
Enough!
That was awesome.
Now at this point, the hunter is aware of our presence, and there is some distance between us and them, which results in our enemy using a dash to get closer and behind cover. Now it's only half cover, resulting in a minus 25% hit chance penalty, but that is still enough to be potentially problematic. As you can see, we also have no way to get a flanking shot with the Dux here to bypass the cover, but luckily there is a solution. And that solution is to switch Bormin over to the Gaper, which comes with a knockback effect when it hits, and to then use his run and gun ability to knock the enemy out of cover.
Don't it?
Now our enemy immediately stands back up again, but the cover is gone, and that means we can now spend the first half of Dux's turn reloading his crossbow, and because he does not even have to move to guarantee the hit, he can shoot right afterwards and get us another kill.
Nice one.
And there we are, Hammond's cabin has been cleared and we have gained another level. Once again though, we'll save that for later and instead take a look at the Far Looker artifact here, only our second artifact of the playthrough, but we want to keep it in mind for when we visit Prip next time.
This is Hammond's Far Looker. Let's bring it back to Prip before the ghouls take it.
That name is all wrong. It should be a smaller fire, because when I looked into it, everything became smaller and more distant.
Amazing what the ancients could make.
Now the Hunter also dropped another damage module. This one works somewhat similarly to the Broiler. It also has a 1-point damage increase for all critical hits, but instead of fire damage it has a small chance to disable robotic enemies. Now of course we haven't met any of those yet, but finding this here is a good indicator that they might be closer than we think. This note here then provides more info on enemies that we will probably meet sooner or later. One can assume that it was written by Hammon himself, and it speaks of a campsite west of the Fallen Machine, a campsite that is home to a few more zone dogs. So let's keep that in mind as we continue our adventure. For the time being though, let's focus on the task at hand, and that is to find out what happened to Hammon, and a look inside of his cabin might give us a few clues.
Zone ghouls stripped this cabin clean. Almost everything useful was gone. But it's a good thing ghouls can't read. They ignored the diary hidden inside Hammond's desk. Me and Dux aren't big readers either. But we look for answers in the diary. And all we get is more questions. Hammond writes how he found the crashed machine near his cabin. He's convinced the machine was sent as a message from a mythical place beyond the zone called Eden, where everybody's happy and safe. When Hammond sees another machine fall north of here, he takes his stalker crew up there to find it. I close the diary. Here's the problem. Eden's a fairy tale. Some bedtime story mutants believe in, so they can get to sleep at night. So either Hammond is onto something, or his brain's got the rot, and he's about to kill a bunch of good stalkers. Guess we gotta find out. Me and Dux have to go north. Farther from home than we've ever been. It's dangerous. Dux thinks I'm crazy to press on. I don't disagree with him.
Alright, so it looks like our journey continues northwards, so let's keep Dux and Bormin moving.
I don't care about some stupid Eden. But we need to find Hammond, and if he's going north, we're going north.
If he's going north, that makes him a grade A certified loony. No one goes up there, Bormin. And what's with those 2 stalkers he took with him? They should know better.
They're following orders, just like us. The Ark can't run without Hammond, so we're bringing him back. Especially with ghoul packs coming this far south. Wonder what they're planning.
Ghouls are too dumb to plan. Someone's pushing them down here. I feel it in my feathers.
Alright, so we have reached the northern exit of this area without any more issues. Before we go through, we can quickly collect one last pile of scrap, and then our search for Hammon continues.
Oh man, we've never been this far from the Ark before. Talk about undiscovered country, huh? You think we finally left the ghouls behind? Yeah, me neither.
Okay, so we have made it to the high road. You may have briefly seen it on the loading screen earlier. From here we can go into two separate directions, but before we do that, there are of course once again a few valuables to be collected. Over here by the river, we also want to take note of the fact that there is something over on the other side of the water. At the moment we have no way of crossing it, but perhaps something presents itself down the line.
My brain must be rotting. Is that a beautiful woman I see before me? Wait, I know that beautiful woman. She is a stalker.
Stay right there. Who are you?
You're Selma, right? You're a mutant like us, on Hammon's team.
Do I owe you money?
No.
Did I kill your brother?
No.
Then Selma I am. Who are you?
I'm Dux, and he's Boorman. Hello? Like the only walking duck and boar in the whole Ark? Come on.
That's funny. I think you've mistaken me for someone who gives a duck. I've got to catch up to Hammon before it's too late.
You're part of Hammon's crew. How did you get separated?
It was weird. We were all hearing strange voices. Not from the zone. In our heads. And that's when the ghouls ambushed us. After the fight, I was somehow blinded, paralyzed. I could barely move. I told Hammon I'd catch up to him when it wore off. 2 long, rough days. But I'm better now. He headed up north to a crash site to find some metal ship. Says it was sent from...
Eden, I know. Do you believe him?
If Hammon thinks there's an Eden, there's an Eden. Believe me. You guys are trying to find him too? And we can work together.
This is insane. You want to go more north? Into Ghoul Central? They'll kill us.
A lot of ghouls have tried to kill me, but I'm still here. So, am I part of your team or what?
And part of the team she is now indeed, which unlocks the Huntress achievement. Now, this means that we want to spend a few moments getting to know her, and that includes taking a look at her mutations. By the way, you can see it here, we have points to spend with both Dux and Boorman, but we are saving those for slightly more expensive stuff that we will unlock very soon. Selma, meanwhile, has 7 points to spend, and whatever we pick, her first ability will only cost 5. We have the choice here between Joker, allowing Selma to draw enemy attention to her for 1 turn, and Super Tendons, allowing her to reach elevated positions in combat without the need for ladders or any other climbing aids. And if you're trying to be accurate, then elevation is certainly not a bad thing, so Super Tendons is the first mutation we'll give her. Now, this leaves us with 2 more points to spend on Tree Hugger, and we'll grab that one as well. An area of effect ability that roots enemies in place and keeps them from moving for 2 whole turns. Who wouldn't want to have that? Over in Selma's inventory, we can also see that she has a silent weapon equipped, the ancient pistol with a base damage of 4. This is now the 2nd silent gun in our squad, and we have enough weapon parts to upgrade it, so let's nip back to the Ark real quick, which we can actually do at any time outside of combat.
I'm happy that you took on this mission to find Hammon. As you go deeper into the zone, questions will arise in your heads. You'll ask yourselves how this world became a wasteland. I'll tell you. A long time ago, a strange disease sprang up in a city not too far from here. A vicious disease. The eyes of the victims would go red. They would bleed from their ears. Hence its infamous nom de plume, bad plague. Within 40 years, the plague destroyed most of the human race. A quick rake of death, scraping across the face of the planet. It was nature's revenge. Revenge against the greed, the arrogance, the egos of humans who thought they were gods. We call these fools the Ancients. We don't worship the Ancients like the madman in the zone do. Because our salvation doesn't depend on false gods who live in the heavens. It doesn't depend on the mirage of paradise beyond the zone. Our salvation depends on us. Us means humans and mutants together. And as two of our resident mutants, I bet you wonder who you are, where you come from. I wonder too. We all do. When I found you in the zone, you were shivering, naked, memories completely wiped. We took you in, taught you, and now you serve us as our hunters, our trackers, our warriors. We are indebted to you, Stalkers. Never turn on each other. Hear me?
Alright, quite the story there. Definitely something to keep in mind.
The Ark thanks you for your service. Be well.
Now, of course, we did not come here for creepy old man monologue, but to upgrade a pistol, so let's head over to Delta's fix pit.
Heard you met some of them ghouls in the weird outfits out there. They call them shamans or something. Their screams alert nearby ghouls and sends them running straight for ya. Next time you see a shaman, shut him up before all hell breaks loose.
And Delta now explains to us how shamans work, which is nice, but let's focus on what we're really here for. 39 weapon parts are enough to get the ancient pistol up to level 2 for a damage output of 5 points, meaning we can now do 10 points of damage silently. And while we're here, we can also give the EMP damage module to Selma as well. Again, just like the broiler, it won't come into play that often, but if it triggers, it's certainly nice to have. And that pretty much concludes our business here with Delta. Like I said, we can now do 10 points of silent damage each turn, which, for example, allows us to take out zone dogs and remain completely unnoticed doing so.
Bye.
Now, up next, let's pay a visit to Prips and see what we can get for the Far Looker artifact that we picked up just a moment ago.
You look thirsty. Have a seat.
And our choice here is quite simple. We want to keep moving down the upgrade tree as quickly as possible, so Pyromania it is for a +1 damage bonus to Molotovs.
Bottoms up.
And speaking of throwables, at this point we also want to equip a hand grenade on all 3 of our characters. It only does 4 points of damage, but it has a rather large blast radius, and that will come in handy very, very soon. And that is all we can do here in the Ark for the time being. So let us now return to where we last left off, which would be the High Road, and since we already discovered that area, we can now fast travel there instantly. This is, by the way, a mechanic that we will definitely make use of plenty of times during this playthrough. It is absolutely not recommended to simply go from area to area. Instead, occasionally heading back to the Ark for upgrades and a few lines of dialogue is going to make the game a lot more enjoyable. Now, we have made it back to the point where we met Selma a few moments ago, and there are no valuables around, so we want to keep following the path here until we get to a fork in the road, and here we want to at least briefly go left. What we can see here fits the story that the Elder told us earlier, as we are looking at evacuation guidelines, of course from a much earlier point in time. Now, at this point we have to make a choice, and that choice includes leaving these ladders here alone, at least for the time being. Just in that moment, it then also sounds and feels like we have something absolutely massive pass by, but we can't see anything, so let's just keep going in the other direction.
Well, well, well. Look what we have here. Am I a grade A stalker or what? You see this hidden path through the forest?
Right, so this small bridge here brings us to the other side of the river that I mentioned earlier, and on that other side we briefly want to head left for some more weapon parts. Continuing on, we then see another ruined house in the distance, and we also quickly notice that we are not alone. However, thanks to our recent acquisition of Selma and some upgrade work, we can now take out this zone dog silently.
That had to hurt.
With 5 points of damage each from Dux and Selma.
I owe you a grog. That was amazing. Wow. You're gonna have one hell of a flea market with this junk. Look at these weird machines. Where do you think they come from? You coming? Oh, I hope it's something good.
Alright, we have found ourselves another hat. This one vastly improves critical hit chance if our character has the high ground, and well, the only character who can currently reliably obtain that is Selma, as we just gave her the Supertendence mutation a few minutes ago. So in my opinion, it only makes sense to also give this to her now, even though, yes, it does in fact look a little goofy. Now there is another zone dog running around, so we want to quickly interrupt our looting tour for a quick takedown.
Gotcha!
If you have kept count, by the way, this is already zone dog number 4, which means we are only one shy of unlocking our second achievement.
Back off!
Not so bad.
And with the area cleared of enemies, we can now also clear it of loot before we then proceed into the next one.
Elder Almighty, I've seen some crazy shit in the zone, but this takes the bullet. This house must have belonged to some small people. I mean, small. That is just the weirdest.
Alright, we only have one more spot left, and that would be a pile of scrap inside of the house here. Afterwards, we can then assemble our squad and head into what is likely going to be our toughest area yet. Okay, welcome to the Fallen Angel, our final area of today's episode, and this one is not only packed to the brim with loot, but also with quite a few dangers.
So I was talking to Iridia, and she told me about this ancient machine she had seen out in the zone, not too far from here. She said it looked like it had fallen from the sky, crashed into the ground, and it spread more than enough scrap around for us.
And yes, Dux and Borman are not the only ones who occasionally have some banter for us, and if what Selma says is true and whatever fell out of the sky landed on this very map that we're currently on, then we could potentially be a whole lot richer in just a few moments. At least for now though, the only thing we find are small drops scattered around the woods, but perhaps, as we head further north, we'll catch sight of that ancient machine that Selma mentioned.
I didn't sign up to hunt some ghoul looters. This is ridiculous, they're everywhere.
Okay, no machine just yet, but a lone butcher. At this point though, that is no threat to us. Still, the presence of patrolling enemies in the area is potentially concerning, as it might indicate that a larger main force is also somewhere nearby. At least for now though, we only run into another lone enemy, this time a hunter, which means that this time it will take 2 shots instead of 1 to take it out.
That was awesome.
Hey, follow me.
And that brings us now to level 8, and we can finally do something with that. Specifically, we want to grab the Hog Rush ability for Borman, which allows him to target one individual enemy and knock them out for 2 turns. So the effect is a bit more powerful than Selma's Tree Hugger, while the area is slightly more limited. In the end, both abilities have their uses, as you will see very soon. For now, we can keep collecting both the stuff that our enemy dropped as well as an artifact that is nearby. This one plays a lovely tune, and I believe it's actually the same one that plays back in Prip's place in the Ark, so he might be even more interested in acquiring it, while our mutants, of course, have their very own ideas of what they might be holding.
There's an image of a rot pear. This looks like a testing contraption for fruit.
I heard stories about singing fruit that could make music. Is this somehow related?
Why the hell would anybody need to test fruit? You either eat it or you sling it at some bozo's head. A bozo like you.
Now, as you can see, we have discovered the helicopter crash site. However, as expected, it is far from unguarded.
Faster! We gotta get this stuff back to the lair before Grey One knows we're gone. Look at these things. We are heroes. Grey One will love us, make us her favorites. Grey One is our leader, not our friend. She sees these goodies, she takes them, kills us. Stick it up your nose hole. Grey One is a weak old hag. Oh, I hope she didn't hear that. Did you hear that? I'm sorry, Grey One.
Alright, so while we have listened into our enemy's conversation, we have already grabbed all that we can. There is still an old notepad lying around next to the cockpit here. However, at least for us, the information in it is largely inconclusive. Most of it appear to be military orders of some sort. Their recipients, of course, have probably long passed.
Yeah, prize time.
Inside of the helicopter, meanwhile, we find something with a much more practical use, namely the Explorer Helm, which protects its wearer against critical hits. Because, of course, if we can score them, then so can our enemies. However, at least for Bormin, that will no longer be true, as he will now equip that helmet. I think it fits his role as the tank of the group quite nicely.
Huh, that's funny. Saw a storybook in the Ark about the ancients. They were wearing suits of armor just like this.
Alright, so at this point it is very important that we do not attack the group ahead of us just yet, because, as you can see, there are more isolated enemies to be picked off first.
Nighty-night.
Another lone butcher, of course, does not pose too much of a challenge. Our next enemy, meanwhile, well, that might be a different story.
Let me ask you guys something. Is that a metal man working in there? Like a man made out of metal?
And yes, Dux is of course referring to the Medbot, our first enemy that's wearing some armor, and one that we want to take out before we engage the main group. Now, due to the armor, we will unfortunately not be able to simply take the Medbot out with 2 silent shots from Dux and Selma, but that should not keep us from moving Dux into a position for a guaranteed hit. Or at least a hit that was guaranteed until he actually reached the spot. The game can sometimes be a bit weird about this. As you can see, the hit chance is now down to 75% because we apparently have cover in the way. If it doesn't hit, that's not the end of the world.
Now it's getting fun.
And as you can see, the bot only took 3 points of damage instead of 5, as 2 were absorbed by its armor. In spite of that, we can still move up with Selma and take a shot with her as well. This one is a proper flanking shot though, so it's guaranteed to hit. Now, the big issue at this point is that if we leave the bot active to act on its turn, it will alert the entire group over on the right. In order to kill it though, we would need a noisy shot from Bormin, which would have the same outcome. So this is where Hog Rush comes into play, which we can now use to knock the Medbot down onto the ground. And there we are, the enemy turn passes by, the Medbot cannot act, and the other enemies on the map are none the wiser, so let's quickly get the kill. And not only did we just gain another level, but also access to a plethora of loot, including another mysterious chest.
Hey guys, come here. Interesting.
Alright, it's another Stalker vest. We already have one of those on Bormin, so we can now select one of Dux or Selma to receive this one. And, you know, let's put it on Dux, simply because he's been with us for a little longer. Now, at this point, we are finally ready to engage the group in front of the helicopter. And as you can see, next to Zone Dogs and a Marauder, that group also includes a Pyro equipped with Molotovs, and our very first named enemy of the playthrough, Chief Husse. Now, apart from the chief, everyone else is actually rather simple to take down. After all, we have brought plenty of grenades, but to reduce our odds of taking damage, we have to be a little bit more strategic. And that also includes not attacking until we're absolutely sure that everyone can land their grenades, which, as you can see, was a bit tricky with Bormin, who I had to reposition multiple times during the approach, and eventually decided to simply pair him up with ducks over on the other side. The most important aspect here is the high cover protecting from Chief Husse, which will hopefully be enough to deter him from shooting back at us. Right, now we're ready though. If Bormin can land his grenade, then so can ducks, but we'll actually start with Selma. Now, if we throw a grenade right away, that will cost her both action points and end her turn. So let's use her Tree Hugger ability first, which only consumes 1 action point, and roots all enemies, including Chief Husse, in place, so that they can't move on their turn. And since we still have 1 action point left, we can now still throw the grenade afterwards.
We've lost one!
The rest of this first round of combat is now very simple. 1 more grenade from ducks follows right away.
Does that hurt?
And then Bormin does the same, killing the pyro and the 2 zone dogs and thus unlocking the Sent to the Farm achievement.
Stay down!
Cleanly done.
Overwatch.
On the enemy turn then, Husse can't move, and I'm not even sure if he has enough range to hit anyone. In either case, he goes on Overwatch.
Bingo.
That is perfectly fine for us, though neither Ducks nor Selma will have to move to land guaranteed shots, so let's do exactly that and finish our first small boss fight of the game.
Back off! That's how we roll!
And there we are, the fallen angel has been cleared and Chief Husse and his ghouls are no more. Our reward is now not only the advancement to level 10 and 11, but also another big pile of valuables scattered around the enemy camp.
I wonder what this might hold.
And this one right here, yes, that is a small game changer for us. It doesn't look like much, but we have just found silent weapon number 3, and that means we can now have Ducks, Selma and Bormin take the stealth approach in combat. As a matter of fact, we'll give the needle pistol to Bormin right away and replace his scattergun. That has served us well until now, but it's time for a change. Mutation-wise, we can also spend a few points, not with Bormin, but with Ducks and Selma. Ducks will now receive moth wings, granting him the ability to fly, and as you can imagine, that once again changes his options in combat quite dramatically. Selma, meanwhile, has just enough points to also unlock a run and gun, so just like Bormin, she can now use the full movement range and still shoot afterwards. And with that, we are now done with everything I had planned for today's episode. At this point, it makes sense to return to the Ark for upgrades and perhaps a few purchases. Every 10 levels, Iridia also receives new stock, so we might want to check in with her next time. For today though, I think we have reached a good point to make the cut. The episode went quite a bit longer than I had anticipated, so please do not expect all videos in the series to last 40 minutes. I'll try to make the cuts where I feel they fit best, and today completing the Fallen Angel made some sense in my opinion. So let's wrap things up right here. As always, if you enjoyed the video, then I would be very happy if you could leave a thumbs up. And if you like what I'm doing and want to support me and my channel further, then you can go ahead and subscribe, grab some merch over on shop.petecomplete.com, or check out and maybe even pledge to the Pete Complete Patreon. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time. Cheers.